August 12th. Two strangers, two stories. One woke up in someone else's clothes, no memory, no phone, miles from the party. The other was hunted down a rural highway by a car that wouldn't pass, wouldn't stop, wouldn't leave. They thought it was just another summer night, but August 12th had other plans. This happened just last year. My buddy Leo is pretty involved and well-connected within the music community. By music community, I mean the dance/electronic scene all along the East Coast, mostly Maryland and Delaware. Honestly, it's impressive what he and his team have pulled off in just 2 years. The gist is this. Their company hosts what they call events at high-profile venues, usually the most well-known club or party space in whatever city they're in. Then they outsource the talent, which, mind you, is typically a very well-known, sometimes borderline famous DJ. I'm not too invested in that scene, so I don't know exactly who they've booked, but I'll tell you this, some huge names have been in the mix. Anyway, Leo and I go way back. I'm talking 20 plus years. I've basically known him my entire life, and he's been my best friend for damn near most of it. Because of that, he lets me and a bunch of our hometown friends come to his shows for free and hang out with the talent in the VIP section. It's actually really cool, something I wish I expressed more gratitude for. Leo was scheduled to host a massive event the weekend of August 12th in Ocean City. It was going to be their biggest one yet, and all our mutual friends were going. Leo invited me to come down early with him, and of course I said yes. The two of us made the 2-hour drive with our other friend Mark, and we got to the venue about 4 hours before the doors opened. Mark and I didn't have much to do while Leo and his team set up, so we decided to get a head start on the alcohol. Leo and his crew had access to unlimited free booze, courtesy of the venue, and Mark and I definitely took advantage. By the time the first DJ started his set, we were more than a little buzzed, to put it mildly. It was peak summer. We felt like our degenerate behavior was justified. Fast forward a couple hours, and we were completely wasted. I honestly don't remember a time since then when I was that drunk, not even close. Don't get me wrong, Mark and I are grown men. We can handle our alcohol. Throwing up or making fools of ourselves wasn't the issue. It was the lowered impulse control, the worst decision-making. But either way, we were having a great time, at least from what I can remember. The event was winding down. It was that point in the night where you either figured out how you were getting home or who you were going home with, or both. Leo had rented a beach house nearby and promised both Mark and me a bed, so the first issue wasn't a concern. The second one, that was on my mind. We danced over to the bar and started talking to some girls we found attractive, and before long, we'd figured out who we were spending the rest of the night with. Neither of us are Calvin Klein models, but we're both 6 feet tall. For whatever reason, most guys in Ocean City seem shorter than average, so being tall is even a bigger boost than usual. And for whatever reason, that seems to be the main thing girls there care about. Not looks, not build, not intelligence, just height. Don't ask me why. I'm probably botching their names, but I'm fairly sure the two girls introduced themselves as Chloe and Sophia. Us meeting them coincides with where my memory starts to get hazy, so there may be gaps in the story from here on out. From what I remember, it was actually Sophia who suggested we all leave together and keep partying elsewhere. Mark and I weren't going to argue. Chloe handed us each a drink and insisted we'd get on their level before heading out, even though we'd probably consumed the fluid equivalent of her body weight in alcohol already. I know, girls getting guys drinks sounds a little unorthodox. And it is, but these girls were clearly wealthy, judging by how they were dressed. After downing the drinks, the four of us moved towards the venue's exit. The moment we stepped outside, Sophia suggested we go back to her place, It was close by and right on the beach. Her saying that actually surprised me. I was fully expecting to go back to our beach house. Usually the guys are the ones who host in situations like this. But both girls insisted that Sophia's beach house was way nicer than whatever place we found for the night. She had a point, so I didn't argue. Neither did Mark. We walked along the beach, talking all the time. The girls seemed intelligent, knowledgeable. I remember thinking how refreshing it was to talk about something other than nightlife and whatever garbage I'm used to discussing with drunk people. At one point, I actually felt embarrassed for being so drunk. I couldn't articulate myself well. I probably looked like an idiot. That's when I realized I was feeling drunker than I had 15 minutes ago, but it wasn't a normal drunk. My body felt like it was melting under its own weight, like I was going to collapse any second. My legs felt flimsy, almost like cardboard. Moving my limbs, my mouth, even my eyes became harder and harder. My extremities started to feel numb. Then, just as quickly as it came on, it passed. I was back to normal drunkenness, at least for the time being. Just then, we arrived at the beach house. It was insane. I'm probably exaggerating because I was so drunk, but it looked like what I imagine a professional athlete's beach house would look like. We went inside, took off our shoes, and found ourselves in what I think was the living room. I say think because the level of opulence was so foreign to me. It was decorative, but somehow minimalistic. Even those descriptions contradict themselves. There were honest-to-God sculptures on pedestals, but it didn't feel cluttered or showy. Everything on display seemed to blend into the walls like they were extensions of the room. I wish I had the presence of mind to take a picture, but again, my mind was elsewhere. Apparently, so was Mark's, because not 15 minutes after we stepped inside, he and Sophia had disappeared somewhere in that maze of a house. That left me alone with Chloe. She leaned in to kiss me, and that's the last thing I remember before blacking out. Not the kiss, just her leaning in. That's where everything cuts off. I don't remember feeling woozy again. I don't remember drinking more. I don't remember doing anything. But there's a huge gap in my memory, several hours long, and it won't come back no matter what I try. And the thing is, I know I didn't pass out. There are texts on my phone sent from me proving I was still conscious. There's digital proof that I was sentient, but I don't remember any of it. And before you say I just blacked out from alcohol, this was different. I rarely black out, and when I do, I still remember bits and pieces, scattered moments, enough to string together a sequence of events. Keep in mind, those were all times when I was drunker than I was that night, so a generic blackout doesn't explain this. Plus, Mark and I experienced the exact same thing at the exact same time. That's way too specific to be a coincidence. Here's the next thing I remember. Waking up. The sun was directly overhead. I was lying in a random set of bushes over an hour away from the venue. Something I didn't know yet because my phone wasn't in my pocket. In fact, nothing was. My wallet, my keys, gone. But it gets worse. It wasn't even my pocket to begin with. I was wearing someone else's clothes, and not Mark's either. A complete stranger's. The only personal item I still had, my shoes. Even those were messed up. Both shoelaces, gone. Soaking wet. My head was pounding. Everything felt disoriented, like I was waking up from anesthesia. I didn't even sit up right away. I just stared at the sky, trying to make sense of where I was. Bushes, someone else's clothes, no wallet, no phone, no keys. And based on my shoes, it was like I'd been in water recently. But I didn't smell like salt water or chlorine. The worst part? The blankness. I genuinely couldn't remember anything past Chloe leaning in.
Like I said before, that's when the panic started to creep in. I wasn't just hungover. I was scared. I had no idea how I got there. What if I'd gotten into a fight, crashed a car, been drugged? I didn't have a single point of reference for the last 10 hours. I stood up. No landmarks. It didn't look like a beach town anymore, which scared me even more. The road ahead curved into more trees, but across the street, maybe a few hundred feet away, was a 7-Eleven. It was the only thing in sight, so I headed straight for it. I asked the guy behind the counter if I could use his phone, told him mine had been stolen. He stared at me for a second, probably wondering if I was trying to scam him. Then he slid the phone across the counter. The first number that came to mind was my sister's, the only number I still memorized besides my parents', and there was no way in hell I was calling them. She picked up right away. I tried explaining things the best I could. She gave me Mark's number. I called him several times. No answer. That's when I started wondering, had the same thing happened to him? Drugged, robbed, dumped in some random bushes an hour away? I was just about to call the police when, what do you know, Mark walks into the same 7-Eleven. We just stared at each other, then dabbed each other up. He told me his version of things, and you guessed it, same story, damn near exactly. That sealed it. We called the police, thanked the 7-Eleven worker profusely. Fast forward a few minutes, we're outside the store recounting everything to the cops. To their credit, they took us seriously, at first. But the more we talked, the more their questions started to shift. Are you sure you didn't just drink too much? Maybe you wandered off and passed out somewhere. They weren't accusing us outright, but it was clear they weren't convinced something criminal had happened. I told them it was unlikely we'd drunkenly wandered into a town an hour away, on foot. I don't think they liked that remark. I gave them my sister's number, asked them to call her. She was already tracking my phone through Find My iPhone. To all of our surprise, my phone was showing up in the middle of a parking lot a few minutes away. The officers agreed to drive us, and sure enough, both our phones were sitting on the pavement, next to each other. While it was great to have my phone back, that only affirmed their theory. We'd just been drunk. They said we probably hadn't even been robbed, that we'd lost our wallets the same way we lost our phones. We tried convincing them to check out the house Sophia brought us to, the one she claimed was hers. They weren't having it. You were probably just too drunk, one of them said. Didn't remember things correctly. Happens more than you think. Then they gave their cards, told us to call if we remembered anything else, and left. Just like that. After they left, I went through my phone for the first time, and things got even weirder. There were texts sent from me to a ton of people I knew. Leo, my parents, a few coworkers, even some girls I'd been talking to. All normal-sounding stuff I might have said if I'd had a calm, coherent night. The texts genuinely sounded like me, but they didn't make sense together. One message to Leo thanked him for the event, said we'd crashed at a buddy's place. Another to my dad said we were safe, found a couch to sleep on. Another to a girl just said, I was hanging out at home, thinking about her. None of it added up. Most of it contradicted each other. I saw a ton of missed calls and texts from Leo, so I called him. He sounded relieved, said he thought Mark and I had died or something. Told us to stay put. He'd come pick us up. In the meantime, Mark and I canceled all our cards. Interestingly, none of them had been used, despite the fact that they'd likely been in those girls' possession for hours. The entire ride home, we talked nonstop, trying to make sense of it. None of it added up. Yeah, we'd been drugged, that much was clear, but that didn't explain everything. I don't know of any kind of roofie that causes induced blackouts while keeping you conscious. Everything I've read says those drugs make you fall asleep. But I was awake. The texts prove that. Plus, why go to such lengths just to rob two random guys? Especially if you weren't even going to use their credit cards. Two guys who walked up to you, no less. And in such a risky place? Your own house? Or was it a house they'd broken into? Both options were risky. Leo thought we'd been targeted, but we were the ones who approached the girls. So we couldn't have been. And that's not even mentioning how or why we ended up in a random town, an hour away, wearing someone else's clothes. As crazy as it sounds, Mark and I checked ourselves for incisions, thinking maybe our organs had been harvested. But there was nothing. Leo suggested maybe they gave us some exotic drugs, which I guess makes sense. But someone had driven us to that town, and someone, other than those girls, had switched our clothes. We never got an answer. But we didn't forget. Mark and I drove all the way back to Ocean City just to look for that house. We retraced our steps, walked along the boardwalk, figured we'd eventually find it since it was on the beach. And we did. We walked up the path, rang the doorbell. An older man answered, asked what we wanted. I did the talking. Didn't want to reveal too much, didn't want to incriminate myself, so I asked if a girl named Sophia lived there, or if he had a daughter or granddaughter around our age. He gave me a hard no. I made up some BS story, said a girl had lied about owning the house. He actually found it funny. And that was that. I'd be lying if I didn't walk away from that house with a sick, unsettling feeling in my stomach. I can't even describe it as fear, just discomfort. Like something truly awful had happened to me and Mark that night, and we'd never get to the bottom of it. For a long time after that, I was convinced those girls were involved in something much, much bigger. Something neither of us could begin to understand. Maybe they planned to kidnap us, or kill us, and backed out at the last second. I know I'll never get an update, but if something else happens, I'll definitely send something. My name's Chloe. I live in Tennessee, just a short drive from the Kentucky border. Several summers ago, I made the drive out to a small town in Kentucky for an August 12th cookout my college friend Olivia was throwing. One of those backyard setups with paper plates, bootleg fireworks, and way too much food. It was one of the better nights I'd had in a long time. Good people, good energy, kids running around with sparklers, that kind of thing. I didn't leave until a little after 10 p.m., which, looking back, was probably my first mistake. That part of the state gets real quiet once the sun goes down. The drive home was going to take a little over 2 hours, mostly back roads. Long, empty stretches of dark two-lane highways with nothing but thick tree lines on either side. Every now and then I'd pass an old farmhouse or a tiny church with a gravel lot, but for the most part, it was just darkness and more darkness. I had music playing low, still riding the high from the party, but I won't lie, there's something about driving through places like that at night that gets under my skin, even when there's no real reason to be afraid. I've always been a little scared of the dark, so I'm sure that played into it. About 30 minutes in, I noticed a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. Figured someone else had just hopped onto the same back road. But the longer they stayed there, the more I started to pay attention. It was a gray Nissan Altima Nothing unusual, except the bottom half looked like it had been driving through mud. I could see it clearly anytime we passed one of those overhead lights at a small crossing. Still, not that weird on its own, but after a while, I realized no matter how much I sped up or slowed down, that car matched me exactly. At first, I thought it was just coincidence, so I sped up a little. 5, maybe 10 miles per hour faster. The Ultima did the same. Then I tapped my brakes, let myself drift well below the limit. Same result. The distance between us never changed. Now keep in mind, on roads like that, people pass each other all the time. It's not even illegal in most spots. I moved slightly to the right a couple times, making it obvious I was giving space if they wanted to go around, but they didn't. They just stayed exactly where they were, 6 or 7 car lengths back. That's when I decided to test them. There was a random left turn coming up, a little residential road with maybe 4 houses scattered on either side. I took the turn, no hesitation. I wanted to get as far away from that car as possible. But about 10 seconds later, they turned too. Same road, middle of nowhere. There was a 0% chance they belonged on that road. At that point, I knew for a fact they were following me. It wasn't even up for debate anymore. I got this sick feeling in my gut, like I was in genuine danger. And for all I knew, I probably was. My heart was pounding through my chest, the same way it would if someone had a gun to my head. I don't know why, but that's the only analogy that fits. I just felt so helpless. Out there, in the middle of nowhere. I had no idea what that person wanted, or why they were locked onto me. But none of the reasons I could think of did anything but terrify me. I just wanted to get somewhere safe, somewhere public with lights and people. As if on cue, I heard that god-awful chime. Near empty gas tank. I swear to God, I've never felt so powerless. My car is old, a 2012 Corolla that's been through hell. Sometimes the gas light gives me 20 miles, sometimes I'm lucky to get 10. And out there's not exactly a gas station on every corner. I pulled out my phone, looked up the nearest 24-hour spot. Over 8 miles away. I didn't know if I would make it. But I didn't have a choice. I wasn't about to pull over, not with that car still tailing me. I thought about calling the police, but it felt pointless, so far out in the middle of nowhere. Cops out there take forever to show up, and part of me felt like calling them would make the danger more real. I know how irrational that sounds. I'm feeling embarrassed even saying it, but I'm just trying to be honest about how I felt. The gas needle dropped to empty a few minutes later. Not just low, empty. I tried to stay calm, but I could feel myself spiraling. Every little sound in the car felt louder. The road felt longer. I felt stupid for being so powerless. But I didn't know what to do. I knew I wasn't going to make it to the gas station. Scenarios started flashing in my head. What would happen when my car ran out of gas? But then, by some miracle, I spotted the glow of a gas station sign up ahead. I almost cried, to be completely honest with you. I took the turn hard, pulled into the lot in one quick motion, just enough time to jump out and book it inside. And that's exactly what I did. I ran, barely shut my car door behind me. From inside, I could see the Ultima through the window. It slowed to stop at the edge of the lot. Sat there for maybe 10 seconds. Engine still running. No one got out. It was like whoever was inside was debating whether to keep going. And then, out of nowhere, it peeled off, fast. Disappeared back down the road we came from. I told the gas station attendant what happened. He offered to call the police. Even after talking to them, I still felt unsettled. I know it's not the scariest thing that's ever happened to someone, but there's no explanation for what happened to me that doesn't involve whoever was driving that car having sinister intentions. And that feeling of pure fear, I hope I never have to experience it again. I made it home, told myself I'd never drive rural back roads at night again. But the story doesn't end there. A few weeks later, something happened that made my stomach drop all over again. I was sitting at home, watching the news, just background noise. A segment came on about two men suspected of armed robbery, attempted murder, and a bunch of other things in rural Kentucky. They showed a blurry still from a security camera. Authorities believed the suspects had fled in a stolen gray Nissan Altima, last seen headed east. When I heard that, I froze. That's who had been following me. I knew it in my gut. There's no way to prove it was the same person, but I'm telling you, I felt it. The timing lined up, the location lined up, the description of the car was identical. I immediately told my story to the police. And that's when it hit me. My hesitation could have prevented two extremely dangerous men from being caught. I'll never forgive myself for not calling the police sooner. It's something I think about often. I never got an update. Never heard anything else on the news. But if anything ever changes, I'll send an update.